Welcome to Energy Work and Healing. I'm Trisha George, an energy healer and intuitive guide, here to help you reconnect with your body, your energy, and your truth. This podcast is all about blending spiritual integrity with practicality, offering grounded insights, energy tools, and real conversations to support your healing journey. Whether you're just beginning or deep into your process, you are in the right place. Let's dive into this together. Hi there, I'm Trisha George from the Energy Work and Healing podcast, and I'm happy you're with me today because today we're talking about the eighth chakra. And this is all about sort of the realms that we actually can't see unless we're using our clairvoyance and our intuition. So we're going to dive right in and let's just talk about, first of all, where you're going to see that eighth chakra, or actually unsee it. It's going to be about 2 feet above your head, and it works with our Akashic Records, our Book of Life, as well as our shadow records. So for me, when I work with the eighth chakra, I sort of see a hallway. And as I enter this hallway or portal, if you want to call it that, I'm choosing which direction I want to go in. So when I tap into the Akashic records, I'm actually tapping into this area of somebody's energetic field through their energy center of the eighth chakra. And I sort of see like an old ancestral door that's very worn. And I sort of tap on that door to get permission to see if I can enter or not. And I'll get a little bit more into that as we move along. But what we want to understand is that when we start working with those higher chakras, we're really diving deeply into the mystery and the mysticism within our energy centers. And if we allow ourselves permission to play in this area, we can play with astral projection, karma, possible potentials, possible future pictures, experiences, past incarnations, all those sort of things, because this eighth chakra really is sort of like an etheric playground in our space. And we're tapping into all different dimensions and levels simultaneously. And we just want to know that when we go up there, we're really going to be working with our pineal gland, which is located in the center of our head, and that has to do with clairvoyance. As we send a signal upward to our eighth chakra saying, we would like to receive some soul information. And when we get into the higher chakras, as I've mentioned earlier, there's going to be sort of an intermingling happening. So when we ask for that permission to sort of, contact our Akashic records, our soul records, or Book of Life, or the shadow records, we're going to also be using our sixth chakra, clear seeing, our seventh chakra, connection to divine and knowingness, as well as the eighth chakra. And they're going to be working in unison together so we can actually digest the information we receive. Many times when we're up in these higher chakras, we don't always understand or comprehend what we are actually seeing. And because we try to sort of put it in a construct that deals with our day-to-day life. And what do I mean by that is we're always trying to like resolve something in our present moment, in our life path, maybe our past or our future pictures, but we're always sometimes looking at the context in a different manner, where if we're more neutral and we allow, let's just say we're looking at a past life and we allow ourselves to experience the movie, the miniseries, the diorama, whatever you want to call it, that's happening in our mind's eye, and look for the symbols, look for the symbology, and look to see what we have to learn from the imagery that's coming through us through the use of our pineal gland and our clair audience, our claircognizance, possibly clairsentience, because we'll probably be feeling a few things, as well as the clairvoyance. So we're going to be using our clairs, which is our subtle energy senses, right? Subtle energy sense perceptions. And that's how we're going to sort of receive the information and try to figure out, like, how will that serve me in my present lifetime, which is in the here and now. So let's just talk about the book of life. So for myself, if I walk into my hall, let's just say, for example, I will actually walk into my hallways and figure out which book I need to actually tap into in order to see what's best for me on my life path. So I know that sounds a little complicated, but if you close your eyes and you're grounded and you're connected to your cosmic energy, you can envision a hallway with special doors in this hallway. And you can actually say hello to the door that sort of like lights up. And what do I mean by that? It might move forward in your space. It might appear brighter than everything else in the hallway. It may be a color, or it might even have a special symbol on that door. And when you invite and give yourself permission to walk through that door with the intention that you're going to be accessing your book of life, you could sort of, for myself, I'll see a huge desk with like a library of sorts, and I will just sit at that desk and my book just shows up for me. And I will just open that book randomly. Sort of like when I used to do the I Ching, I would open it up randomly. I would never think about anything. I would just be a random thought. Maybe tarot could be very similar to that, where you're just pulling information or pulling a card. But when you open up your book of life, you're asking the book to show you what you need to know at the present moment. And it might have to do with very deep sort of decision making, whether it's career based, relationship based, or maybe even relocation. So we want to give ourselves the opportunity to see what comes up and how that can serve us in our present lifetime. And when we look at that book of life, we may ask, so when we ask, we're asking higher sense perceptions to show me two pathways. Show me the pathway for A. Say it's our career. We're in choice A. And then show me the pathway for choice B. And maybe B is like, A is where we're leaving and going to a different career. B is where we're staying, where we've been for the past 15 years. Let's just say hypothetically. So you might actually see, when you touch A, you might see a smooth path. You might see trees, you might see butterflies, you might see a blue sky, happy people, whatever you may see as you're moving along this projection of this imagery. And when you then look to your other direction and look at B, you may see, for example, a steel wall in place, or a brick wall, or you might see a boulder. And that's sort of telling you what is the visual picture, because we tend to operate in pictures first more than anything. So that's giving you a visual picture that if I stay in B and stay at this job I've been doing for 15 years, I'm going to hit a wall or I'm going to hit a block. Where if I have courage to overcome my fears and go to the job A, I could actually have happiness, peace, and joy. And it's giving ourselves permission, the ability to allow ourselves to experience, have, and be something new. And try not to get stuck in an identity of that, but allow ourselves permission to grow and evolve and change. Where that, for many people, can be very scary. And when we're working with this eighth chakra, there's so much information up here. The other area for this is the Akashic Records. And for myself, again, I would see a portal or a doorway. And when I'm working with my clients, I will always ask permission from my counsel if it's okay for this person to hear what I'm going to be sharing through the Akashic Records. And if I get a no, I'm very observant of that and respect that space because that person's just not ready yet. But if I get a yes, I'll walk into that portal or that door or that gate, whatever you want to see it as, and I will actually bring my client with me. I'll bring their spirit or soul with me. And we sort of walk into this hallway together. But the really wild thing for myself with the Akashic Records is my hallway here is so different in the sense that it's like a set or a series of door columns, kind of like what you would see in Italy or Rome. And it's like columns that are lined up. They're all white, except the ones that we need to look at. So, what do I mean by that? That means that one of the columns might be out of alignment, one might have a little debris on it, maybe there's some weeds growing on it, maybe there's a crack in the column. So, as I walk through the portal, through this entry point with my client by my side, I will be asking for the access to the highest information that we can have for that client to assist them in the present moment. And I will look for those columns that are a little protruded outwards. And then what I do is I sort of tap the column with my etheric eye or my etheric finger, because really we're working on an imagination pathway here. So I'll tap that column and then I will ask for the pictures to be shown to me on what I use is sort of a reading screen. So it's about 6 feet in front of my face, and it's a screen that sort of has, for me, it has 3 panels. I have one on the left, one on the right, and one in the middle. And I can actually see a panoramic view of this image coming to life. I can see the characters, I can see the landscape, I can see the home, and I'll actually feel viscerally what that person or people are going through within that past incarnation. And I'm also asking, who is my client during this process? Because you're seeing more than one person sometimes. So you're looking for the main character in the story that you're observing. So if you're watching a mini series, you're looking for the main person in that mini series. And what is it that's happening that you can share with the client that's going to help them evolve? And then the best part of this for myself, not everybody does this, but I love clearing it afterwards. I love to share it and then tell them, like, we're going to see where that is leading in their present moment, like how they're using that past incarnation or why it might be, showing up right now currently. And then we're going to just like clean that column up and then set it back. And what that does, it allows that old information to heal. And when we heal that, it allows us to sort of have an acceptance of who we are and a better understanding of a particular situation in our present moment. So it's a real beautiful experience to witness, because you'll have very quick changes occur when you're working in your Akashic Records, your eighth chakra, your book of life, your book of shadows. Now, the book of shadows for myself would be going down that same hallway, for example, and seeing what that person doesn't want to face. What are the blocks, the strongholds, the projections that that person may have? And why do they not want to see it? What are they hiding from themselves? And this is where, with the chakra system, you actually might see a bend in a particular chakra. So, do I necessarily see bends in the eighth? Very, very rarely. I would say almost never. But I might see a bend in a chakra for the second chakra, for example, right? 2 inches below our navel. And I might actually see it bend behind us, where they're in avoidance or they're hiding something because they don't want to see it. Because when we're working with our shadow records, we're working with pain or sort of karma that we haven't really looked at. Instead, we've hidden it, buried it deep within, and many times people are scared of themselves here. And I always say, you're just learning more about yourself. So, how can you let go of the fear, the apprehension, the unsettled energy? And how can you actually get to know yourself more deeply and more innately? And when we give ourselves permission, let's just say, for example, um, let's say, for example, that did very poor self care in the past. We overate food that wasn't healthy for us. And when we consumed it, we knew we didn't feel good. We drank a lot, even though we didn't like alcohol and we didn't like the way it made us feel, the next day. We might have smoked because we were holding back information and we didn't have an easy time speaking our truth. So we're sort of abusing our physical body enough so that we're seeing effects from those three symptoms. Let's just say drinking, overeating, and smoking. So if we have those three elements in our body and we bring those with us to the shadow records, maybe we're looking at a picture where we feel like we're stuck, like that we cannot proceed in our lives, that we have to maybe stay in a particular relationship, let's just say for this example, where we don't feel loved, we feel love unreceived, therefore we didn't love ourselves. So we started abusing and neglecting ourselves through the alcohol, the drugs, and the overeating of processed food. And the body felt bad, but we ignored the body because we didn't want to listen. Because many times we have a hard time changing, adapting, modifying because we think we need to stay stuck within a construct, and that's where we're sort of living in a little box. And if we allowed ourselves permission to go into our shadow records and see that really those three elements, the drinking, smoking, and overeating, all have to do with repressed emotions, anger, resentment of a self and the other. It's not just one sided, you know, as well as the lack of confidence to change and to alter one's state of mind or state of physical body. And if we allow, by reading this in this space and reading the shadow records, then we can reflect on, how can I clean up this debris? How can I clean up this shadow, this depression? And usually that sits right in front of somebody's eyes. And for myself, it's like almost like they're wearing a pair of goggles or glasses. And that sort of clouds their judgment because they can't see what's actually really happening because they've sort of forced themselves to look through a filter. If you think of it that way, they're wearing a pair of shades, right? We're not seeing the colors as clearly as we would if we took our shades off. So this is where, if we allow ourselves to take off those sunglasses, those shades, and learn and accept that yes, we have anger, resentment, maybe anxiety, whatever it is. And that is why we're abusing our body, because deep down, we may not feel worthy to receive something. And when we trust and begin to forgive ourselves for the abuses that we've done to ourselves through the shadow, then we can heal. Then we can move forward and actually say, because I've connected to myself and I'm learning how to love myself more than anything else in this world, then you have permission for growth. Then you have permission to work in a different manner and heal yourself by overcoming that shadow self. We all have one. And for myself, I always say, you don't necessarily have to wear it like like a badge of honor. You can have it, face it, and then let it go. Don't punish yourself for where you are currently placed. Allow yourself, through the affinity and love of yourself, through your heart chakra, to nurture, forgive, and allow that shadow to sort of dissipate. And that's where you can use an element like the wind or water. You can let it go up into the stars, into the atmosphere, but you're releasing it. So you're allowing yourself to come to the light of your life through your sixth chakra, knowing in your seventh chakra that you're clearing up a shadow self. And there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, it's going to bring you more and more closer to yourself. And when you become closer to yourself, you become more authentic. And then when you have that authenticity, you could be more authentic with others. There's no reason to mask yourself or cloak yourself anymore. In a way, when you're working with the Book of Life, the Akashic Records, and the Shadow Records, you're going through a cathartic sort of death of the self, because one aspect of you has to be released. It has to die. It has to go away so that you can bring in that new aspect of yourself. So you're sort of getting rid of a seed that's never been able to receive nutrients, right? It's never been able to germinate. And you're replacing it with another seed that you're choosing through your life choices to feed with water, fertilizer, what have you. But you're making that choice for yourself. No one else is doing that. Also in the eighth chakra, there is the ability to astral project. And I do this a lot of times with my clients, depending on certain situations, where I will astral project to their destination. So because I don't always work with clients in person, I might be working with them over the phone or via Zoom in different countries, 360 degrees on the other side of the planet. You can instantly, because we're energy, right? You can instantly go to that location and you can go into that sort of space and see what's going on in the home. So, say, for example, that someone's experiencing noises or they don't feel safe in their own home because someone moved in next door. I can sort of astral project there and see that it's like almost similar to like a duplex or an apartment where there's a shared wall. So that other person's energy is like permeating through the wall as you are being the observer. And especially if you're the empath living in this side, you're very sensitive to what's going on, either above you, to the side, underneath you. And by using certain tools, you can actually heal that space and sort of create like an ownership for that individual or yourself so that you're grounding your environment. And when I astral project, I'll see like someone's kitchen maybe, or I'll see the living room, for example, and I'll see where they need to sort of heal that space from something. So I will sort of do that for them at that time. But it's like imagining like linen sheets coating the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. And you're sort of nailing it to the ground. I like to use golden railroad ties, like the stakes of a railroad tie. It's my favorite thing. Don't ask me why. I've been using them for for years, since I can remember. I used to have one in my car, even when I was a kiddo. But and I would just envision nailing down these railroad stakes all the way around the perimeter. And then I would go outside the house, and then I would go to the street, and then I would go 5 miles around the house, grounding and owning the space, because that's my residency. That's where I reside. Same with my clients. I'm doing the same thing for them, where I'm astral projecting into their space and grounding the home, the environment around the home. You could ground your car, and you can ground 5 miles or 10 miles around where you dwell. And this allows you to sort of clean up energy that might be in there. Say you moved into a new location, into a new home, and you hear all these different sounds. There could even be a being in the house that sort of hasn't left yet, right? Like maybe something has occurred where their energy field or their essence sort of got captured in a particular room or space. You can clear that energy and send that being either A, calling them back to their rest of their energy if they're still in a physical body, or B, you're sort of sending them to Supreme Being if they've transitioned. Because many times beings don't always know that they've transitioned. And if somebody's had maybe some, challenges in their life while they were living in a particular area, that energy will get stuck a little bit the in the new space that's for you. So you have to be able to give yourself permission to heal that, because that person's energy needs to sort of go, and you're doing that again through intention. So if you think about these higher chakras, we're always working with intention. We're witnessing, we're experiencing, we're feeling, whether it's physical or whether it's subtle, we are feeling something, that something's not right. So we're just trying to set intention that we are in ownership. We have dominion over this space. And it's not for eternity, right? None of us are going to live forever, but we're going to hold that energy signature of us, let's just say, while we are present in that location. That way, we know what's going on in our north, south, west, and east quadrants. We're conscious of everything that's happening within our space. So, utilizing our shadow records, our book of life, our Akashic records, and allow them to support our personal journey so that we can deepen within ourselves. And we're really just deepening the understanding of who we are. And we're allowing ourselves to experience and embrace those experiences without deeming them positive or negative. And when we allow them to happen and we allow them to be felt innately in the body, and yes, like I said, it's going to be visceral at times, you're going to realize that the feelings will come and go. They diminish just like the wind. And we want to utilize these tools so that we can be a genuine expression of our spirit and our soul connected to this physical body. Now, it gets very challenging in these higher chakras to know when they're in surplus and shortage because it's so intermingled here. The best thing I could say for surplus or shortage in the eighth chakra has to do with time. Like if we think about, we're using our book of life, we're using our Akashic records and our shadow records. So we're working with a timeline that goes east and west, right? If we put our arms out to a T. And this is where somebody may have, sort of like, they're sort of checked out, I guess, in a way where they're not able to comprehend time. Maybe they can never get to work on time, or they can never really, arrive to where they need to be at the appropriate time for the other people that they're meeting. So their commitments get screwed up. They're disassociated with time concepts and concepts of time. And this is just because their internal clock is not completely set, because they're sort of probably living outside of their body for a large part of their day. So whether you're too early or too late, whether it's 20 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, it doesn't matter. It still has to do with your eighth chakra. And it's just that it's out of sync, because if you're out of your physical body through zoning out, through disassociation, or just unable to ground because you're always working with cosmic energy, we really need to then focus on grounding and teaching tools to ground. Because what happens with these people is they're daydreaming a lot. They're really not in their body. They're too busy doing something, and they lose a concept of time and space. This would be someone that might have their head in the clouds, or they have an overactive imagination where they created this whole story why they couldn't get there on time, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, I saw this guy, so I had to follow him to see what was going to happen. And next thing I know, I was an hour late to where I needed to be because they started creating a story in their head. So when it goes, I guess excess would be, or in surplus would be when you're too late or too short in either way, but it's also a form of shortage. The eighth chakra also has to do with metabolism. So, how we metabolize information in our body and through our physical form. And it can be where we have a high metabolism or low metabolism, similar to time. Our body doesn't know how to regulate itself. There's a lack of information because the eighth chakra is sort of being bombarded with information that's not necessarily needed. And that's affecting the seventh, which is, if we understand it right, knowingness, connection to source. We're a little disconnected here. We're not totally paying attention, and we're not conscious. We're not conscious awareness in our sixth chakra. So they're all interrelating with each other, and those are those people that, they'll make every excuse in the book as to why something is, rather than being accountable for what truly is, because it's a lot easier to do that way. So when you get to play with these and you get to sort of experiment in a safe way with yourself, it allows you to live in your present moment in a more fulfilled and complete manner. And it really, through that authenticity, empowers you to be yourself. And you're breaking free from any limiting beliefs, any patterns, any strongholds, any stuck energy. In essence, you're becoming more of who you were meant to be. Now, I tell many of my clients that when we are younger, say between ages 3 and 6 years of age, before we hit 7, that's the being that we are as spirit and soul, because we're really not fully programmed just yet. And if you can remember back to who you were back then and just compare that inner self or inner child, whatever you want to call it, that feels comfortable for you, with the person you are today. Do they mirror each other? Did you lose that inner child somewhere along the way? And are you willing to get that back? Are you willing to do the work for yourself so you can heal in this lifetime? Because when it comes down to karma is just life experiences, and we're having life experiences with other people all the time. I mean, all the time. Even when you're, working from home, you're still having to probably engage with somebody. So if we understand we're creating karmic patterns with people through our incarnations, and what that means is we can have a family lineage or a group of souls, let's say, instead of family, that we incarnate with over and over and over again. And occasionally we might clear the karma with one of those, and boop, they're out, because we cleaned that karma. We cleared that information from our past lives, the present moment, and then we're still incarnating with this other group of spirits and souls where another one might pop in to replace that one. but we're having all these experiences together. So you want to try to do it through authenticity, where you're staying in integrity, you're being true to who you are, and you're allowing yourself to have these experiences while simultaneously being conscious, right? Sixth chakra, that we're clearing karma with all our relationships in this lifetime. And I always tell my customers, if we don't clear it in this lifetime, it's going to have to get cleared in the next. And sometimes it inverts, it just depends. But I do believe that we're constantly incarnating with the same people until we clear the information that's needed to be cleared within our own soul program. And simultaneously, that other individuals working on their own information with us. So I always say, be careful of the anger that you carry with you on a daily basis towards somebody. That's where forgiveness of anybody or everybody needs to happen. We need to let go, and we need to accept or allow people to be their individual selves so that we have permission to be our individual selves. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it's a lot of information, but like I said, when you're working on the imagination pathway, it's really fun and it's really amusing. And try not to take it too seriously, and try to just see your symbols and your signs for what they are for you and you alone. And in our next episode, we're going to be working with two of the chakras. We're going to be talking about the ninth chakra, which is the soul chakra, or we can call it the soul star. And then we're going to be working with the 10th chakra, which is located a foot below our feet, and some people call it the earth star. And until then, do your best to stay authentic, stay genuine, and stay in integrity with yourself. You're your own information. Allow yourself to process it, feel it, have it, and just put it in that book of life. So that way it'll stay with you and you could just move on. I love blank pages in the book of life because that's where you get to create your next story. Thank you for joining me on Energy Work and Healing. If today's episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe, share it with someone who might need it, and leave a review. Remember, your energy matters, and your healing helps heal the world. Here, we honor the path of blending spiritual integrity with practicality so you can walk empowered, aware, and aligned. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and keep listening to the wisdom found within.